Star Wars Santa here. My thoughts on season 3.
Thank you, Santa, for that intro. And if you followed us over here from my channel, Reimagining Star Wars, then you just watched the first part of the second half of Season 3. Now we're going to do the second part of the second half of Season 3 as we review the Clone Wars in chronological order. Thank you for coming, and take it away, Santa.
So, the Mortis arc is one of my favorites of this whole series, and a Magic Maker's review. We kind of been able to talk about that, but I just bring up with a reminder: this was all made during George Lucas's reign at when he was still the owner of Lucasfilm, and these all fall under his ownership. And so this canon isn't what people complain about from Disney, so to speak. This is Lucasfilm stuff. So just throw that in there. We now enter into the Citadel arc. It's a 3-parter. And for the Citadel arc, it's important to understand this really is about Anakin's story arc. We see a great deal about Anakin and how his mind is going, his attitude towards control, his attitude towards forcing peace upon people instead of freeing people to have peace. So here he, again, it's kind of important to keep in mind this is really about Anakin's story arc. We get a lot of insight into how he's starting to differ himself from the Jedi Order. The first part, we pick up Season 3, Episode 18, titled The Citadel. That's where it gets its name, the Citadel story arc. It's Episode 18. Then 19 is Counterattack. And then Episode 20, Citadel Rescue, the 3-parter. The first part, we learned that Jedi Master Evan Peel has been captured, along with one of our favorite, Tarkin. So Tarkin is captured along with Peel. Peel has a secret hyperspace route that is highly sought after. It's a direct link between the Separatist kind of home headquarters and the Republic home, their headquarters. So the center, the heart of the Republic and the heart of the Separatists. And it's this hyperspace lane that would give either side a tremendous advantage in the war. So Peel has been captured. He's in this place called the Citadel. It's owned by, or it's managed by the Separatists, and it's the most secure facility, prison ever known. Nobody has ever escaped from it. It's highly, highly secure. And then the Jedi are given this task of getting in there to free Peel, because the information that he has is too damaging if the Separatists get hold of it. And so Plo Koon, we see Plo Koon, Obi-Wan, and Anakin have decided they're going on this. We all have Jedi, fully trained Jedi. They decided it's too dangerous to take Ahsoka with them. Ahsoka's not happy about that at all. And she appeals to Plo Koon and says she should be able to decide for herself if she goes. If it's dangerous, she takes that on herself. Plo Koon says, this is between you and Anakin. He is your master. You're his Padawan. And what you got to go work this out with him. So the other interesting part that I thought here is they decide that in order to get to the Citadel, they need to suppress their life signs. So all of the Jedi, as well as all of the clones, any living being, is then frozen in carbonite. And I thought this was fascinating because Anakin is one of those, right? So Anakin is being frozen in carbonite. He's part of this plan, as well as all these other clone troopers and whatnot. And if you remember back when Han Solo was originally frozen in carbonite, that he was put in there as a test. And I know that if you remember back, uh, they weren't really happy, right? The bounty hunter Boba Fett was worried that he would lose his um, reward for bringing back Han Solo if Han Solo was killed through that freezing process. And uh, Vader then says, don't worry about it. If something happens, you'll get paid, handsomely. But the plan is to use this as a test with Han Solo, so that when Luke gets there and they carbon freeze him, he knows it'll work. But we go back to this episode, and Anakin is frozen in carbonite along with Obi-Wan, Plo Koon, all of the clone troopers that are being taken with them. And turns out Ahsoka, once they are frozen in carbonite, Ahsoka has herself frozen in carbonite and put on trip, because then nobody could argue with her, right? They're already frozen in carbonite. So R2-D2 has some reprogrammed battle droids, and R2 is sort of leading this mission to where the Citadel is, so that there'll be no life forms on board. So R2 and the reprogrammed battle droids are the ones that make the connection to, or the communication to the guards at the Citadel when they arrive, that they've got some supplies they're bringing in. Ahsoka is kind of reprimanded for coming along. She said, well, Plo Koon agreed to it, but it's kind of too late. She's already there. Anakin's like, well, we'll talk about this later. Find out that it's kind of fortuitous Ahsoka's there, because she's small enough to fit into like a vent, and she crawls through to the other side. She lowers the force field that's keeping them out, and they're all able to enter into the Citadel. Alarms go off. Captain Tarkin and Jedi Master Peel are set free, and the group split up. On one side we get Peel and Obi-Wan, and the other side we get Tarkin and Anakin and Ahsoka. So Obi-Wan, Plo Koon, Peel, they're on one team. Skywalker, Ahsoka, and Tarkin are the other. And through this, we start to see this relationship between Anakin and Tarkin evolve. We see who Tarkin is sort of about. We kind of see some early leanings to him, even though he's a member of the Republic at this point, right? He's kind of a bad guy. And you can kind of see that. And we start to see Anakin having some argumentative relationship with Tarkin, as we saw in the movies as well. Like Vader and Tarkin had this animosity between them, even though they were working together. And so the episode ends with them trying to leave the Citadel on these separate teams. Episode 19, the lead-in title says, anything that can go wrong will. And of course it does. Tarkin, through the escape part, Tarkin admires the Citadel, and he laments that the Separatists have it instead of the Republic. And Ahsoka sees this as odd. She's like, why would you want to have this kind of facility? And Tarkin's like, well, this is brilliant. It's great. Nobody could escape. Of course, he's escaping, but he just admires the intensity of the place and the security of it. And Anakin says, well, Ahsoka, Tarkin has a point here. So you start to see that Anakin and Tarkin, while they have this animosity, they're sort of aligned in their way of thinking. So Plo Koon and Mace Windu are planning the mission remotely. Tarkin doesn't like following Ahsoka. He keeps calling her a child. He's kind of resentful that a Padawan has this much kind of leeway or power. And so he's complaining. R2's droids kind of, so they get captured, but by droids, but R2's droids come along and take ownership of the captives away from the other battle droids, and which of course frees them. So as they're being freed, Anakin's group travels through a fuel gas line pipe, and Tarkin's complaining about Ahsoka the whole time and the Jedi methods. And Anakin, while he doesn't agree with Tarkin about Ahsoka, he agrees that the Jedi methods are antiquated, they're out of date, ineffective. They're actually cause more problems than they help with. And so Anakin and Tarkin are sort of on the same side regarding the Jedi Order, and they're kind of opposition to it, actually. And they end up getting out of a gas line, and there's a bunch of droids coming along. They blow up the gas line, and everything goes sideways. Anakin says, "We're going to have to go to Plan B," and meanwhile, Sobek is the commander of the Citadel. Sobek figures out that the battle droid issue with R2's battle droids, and Sobek's battle droids then take over and intercept Obi-Wan's group again. So at the end of the episode, through all the action, Anakin's group meets up with Obi-Wan's group. They come together in a mid-battle. There's a big battle going on. Through this battle, we go back to one of the Domino Squadron again. We've been following them along. They keep showing up different places. We remember Echo was killed before, and then 99. He wasn't part of Domino, but he was sympathetic to them. He was killed before. And in this episode, Echo is with them, and Echo is killed. So now we've lost another Domino Squad member in Echo. And that happens very close to the end of the episode. Plo Koon, Mace, and Yoda are sending reinforcements to get them out, but things are not looking good for Anakin and Obi-Wan, the folks there at the Citadel. They're in mid-battle, and it kind of ends on that cliffhanger with right after Echo getting killed. That leads us into episode 20, Citadel Rescue. And remember, we've had Anakin and Tarkin kind of with this animosity between them, but they're kind of growing together. You see Anakin kind of sympathizing with Tarkin's viewpoints on a lot of things, in the separation of Anakin between the Jedi Order, the way that the Jedi work, and the way that Tarkin, and the way that where we're headed with the Empire coming in. So Anakin's kind of sympathizing in that direction. So we pick up in episode 20, Citadel Rescue. Dooku contacts Sobek and is taking him to task on what's going on at the Citadel, and threatens him that he better not let this fail, and that the only reason that Sobek is still alive is because he's been honest with Dooku regarding the issues they're having, the trouble. He realizes that the prisoners have escaped. They're chasing them down. They're trying to get control of the situation. Sobek has been honest about that, and Dooku says that that's the only thing keeping him alive. Sobek then releases these dog-like creatures called Anubas, which is again interesting because Anubis, with the ancient Egyptians, was that dog-like god, but that was spelled different. This one is spelled Anooba, Anuba, versus the Egyptian Anubis. But anyway, it sounds the same. And they're also dog-like creatures, obviously, that influence that. And those Anubas are sent out to find the escapees. Anakin and Ahsoka are really developing different attitudes about Tarkin. Anakin says ultimately, I think Tarkin's good. And Ahsoka kind of gives him a side eye, like, nah, not so much. Sobek anticipates the troops that are being sent from Yoda and Windu, and he warns them, hey, they're coming, get ready. Tarkin feels like he kind of is trying to, again, the animosity between Anakin and Tarkin is shown again. Tarkin's talking about how he's fallen into good graces with the Chancellor. And of course, we know Anakin is very close to the Chancellor, but neither of them are aware of each other at this point. And until here, Tarkin says, I've got my, inside to the Chancellor. He's kind of taken a liking to me. And Anakin's like, yeah, well, he's kind of taken a liking to me too. But, and you just tell Tarkin's trying to one up Anakin and trying to leverage his relationship to give some influence with Anakin. So we get that little picture. Peel and Ahsoka. So Jedi Master Peel and Ahsoka split off from Anakin, Obi-Wan, and the clone troopers, and it's a tactic that they purposely take. Through this split, the Anubas catch up to Peel and Ahsoka and end up mortally wounding Peel. Peel is dying. Ahsoka goes to him and says, "You're critical. We've got this whole hyperspace lane thing going on, and only you know it." And he tells Ahsoka, "I will tell you what I know, and it's now your responsibility to carry this back to the Jedi Temple." And so Ahsoka gets that message from him. We just see it whispered to her. We can't hear anything, and then Peel dies right there. Ahsoka brings back his body, and they end up cremating it in the lava flow. And the Republic forces arrive. Tarkin fights with Sobek. The Sobek was again the commander of the Citadel, and Tarkin and Sobek are fighting. Through that, Ahsoka ends up coming up and killing Sobek, so that Tarkin kind of rescuing Tarkin. And again, I find it very interesting because we've known Tarkin and we've known Anakin, but we didn't know that Tarkin had ever met Ahsoka before. We had this 3-part episode where they've worked together quite a bit, and of course, we didn't know Ahsoka before the Clone Wars. So, just to me, I find that fascinating. Just as a side note, at the end, Plo Koon comes. He picks up all the survivors on a ship. They haul them away, and they end up back in the Republic hands. And when they get back, the Jedi Council comes out, kind of talking to them. They're lamenting that Peel was killed, but it's revealed that Ahsoka has half of the information. Tarkin has the other half. If you remember back, in that first episode, Tarkin and Peel were captured. So the only assumption we can make is that the two of them already had this half and half information. Peel passed on his half. Tarkin has his half. And now they've got conflicting motivations. Tarkin says he will only give his half of the information to the Chancellor. Right, that's where his allegiance is, to the Chancellor, and we already know that Tarkin has this distrust of the Jedi Council, and he dislikes the Jedi methods. So he's not going to tell the Jedi anything. He'll only tell it to the Chancellor. On the other hand, Ahsoka has taken a vow to Peel that she would only give her message to the Jedi Council. So the information is still divided. And then they have to work out. Yoda says he'll try to meet with the Chancellor and they'll work out this information together. Presumably they're on the same side, but we know that there's this back path to the Separatists through Palpatine, who's actually orchestrating things on the other side. And so giving him the information is actually shortcutting a route to the Separatists. Meanwhile, he's supposedly representing the Republic and their forces. So it's interesting that that's sort of where it heads off with this split. And towards the end, again, we get a little insight into Tarkin and Anakin, where they're seeing eye to eye on things. There's kind of have this unsaid agreement between them, like, hey, I got my eye on you. I think we're going to get along. Even though there's this animosity, we're sort of more aligned than not aligned. And Anakin's talking about how he kind of admires Tarkin in some way, and Obi-Wan is not. He doesn't agree. Neither does Ahsoka. And you see again this kind of divide that's happening. And there's an interesting quote that Obi-Wan says at the very end. He worries that the honor will be sacrificed if they stray from the Jedi path. And we already know that Anakin has kind of said that that's his goal, is to kind of change the Jedi way. He disagrees with the Jedi path and all of that. So that's where this story arc ends off. As I mentioned, this is really about Anakin's development. We get really good insight into where he's headed. It's part of what fills in his path to the dark side. It's a really good episode from that standpoint. And we start to see then where Ahsoka's moral compass is leading her versus where Anakin's motivations are leading him. He doesn't have that same moral compass. So that ends this 3-part episode. We'll again turn things over to Imagic Maker to talk about a 2-part episode coming up.
So in this episode, Padawan Lost, Ahsoka is separated from Anakin and is captured by Trandoshans. Now the way it happens is they're on the Battle of Felucia, and in a 3-prong attack, Ahsoka goes with her clones and she's separated from them. In the course of that, she is captured by Trandoshans, and they take her to a Trandoshan moon where these Trandoshans are doing a hunt of sentient beings. This is essentially the Star Wars version of the movie The Most Dangerous Game, which came out in, I think, 1930-something. But it's been played over again with The Hard Target and a bunch of other movies. But we have a scene with Anakin where Anakin is frustrated and completely just determined and obsessed with finding Ahsoka. And Plo Koon tells him that there's nothing he can do and that he has to trust the training that he has given Ahsoka and trust Ahsoka. So Ahsoka gets on the island and meets 3 other Jedi younglings that were captured and brought to the island. Now they appear to have grown up and they're just a little bit younger than Ahsoka herself. Of course, we do find out they've been here for a while and they've been surviving, and they encourage Ahsoka to just run away and hide and survive. But Ahsoka won't listen, and she insists that they must fight back if they're ever going to get off that island. So with some coordination, they do fight back, and it happens to be the ringleader of the Trandoshan's son, and this is his first attempt to kill a Jedi for a Jedi hunt. And so as he comes down, at first they face one other, and they're able to defeat that one, then they run away. So we get some exposure to that one. And then with Dar, the son of the ringleader, when he comes down, he gets a little overzealous, jumps down there to face them, and in the fight, there's a back and forth, and he falls to his death onto some spiky plants. And of course, this infuriates the leader. He begins shooting, and he ends up shooting one of the younglings, and she dies. It's a pretty sad ending, and we say goodbye to Khalifa. This leads right into the next episode, Wookie Hunt. Now, they want to assault the Trandoshans directly, but they can't get to their stronghold because they are up in the air. So they need a ship. And they figure out that they can attack the ship that drops off the prisoners or the captives onto the island. They attack the transport ship, and in the course of doing that, they bring it down, and they end up releasing the captives in order to try to keep them from dying when the ship crashes. And it turns out there's only one, and that one was Chewbacca. Later on, they end up capturing a Trandoshan, and Chewbacca also builds a communicator using the parts left over from the Trandoshan ship, and this is where their plan starts to come together. So Chewbacca tells us that Kashyyyk is really close to the Trandoshan moon, and he wants to wait for them to arrive to rescue him. But the younglings don't want to wait, and they want to attack the Trandoshans so they can ensure their survival and make it to where they can't hunt again. Both Ahsoka and Chewbacca agree, and they utilize the captive they have to get a speeder to come down, a platform to come down, so they can take it up and attack the fortress that's in the air. In the fortress in the sky, a big fight ensues, and of course the Jedi and Chewbacca defeat many of them, but eventually they are overwhelmed. And just as it looks like it's all bleak, of course, the Wookiees show up, the people that Chewbacca had called. A big fight ensues. Again, the Wookiees throw some Trandoshans over the railing. It's awesome, pretty cool. And then Ahsoka goes after the main ringleader. And as she's going after the main ringleader, he blames her for the death of his son, and she puts it squarely on his head. And then when he tries to fight her, she uses the Force to push him through the door and over the railing, and he falls to his death. And once again, we get to see Chewbacca interact with the Jedi as the Wookiees drop the younglings and Ahsoka off at the Jedi Temple on Coruscant. And Anakin apologizes to Ahsoka for not trying harder to find her and says he should have done more. And she says, "No, you did all you could. And in fact, it was you that saved me. It was all your teaching." And she thanks him. And he says, "Oh, you're welcome." And the episode ends as they walk off together. So we hope you enjoyed this quick down and dirty summary and review of the Clone Wars Season 3. We hope you'll join us next week for Season 4, and there'll be an end screen right here when it's up. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and may the Force be with you.
Thank you for your time, and I look forward to chatting with you on these episodes. Take care. Talk to you soon.